Passing spare time can be done by doing various activities, including watching movies. Well, if you want a show with a romance genre while also containing spices for hot scenes, the following semi-Korean films can be an interesting choice. Curious about anything? Come on, take a look at the following reviews. In the first order there is The Handmaiden. This semi-Korean film has a fairly complex story. A con man recruits a young woman to work as a maid in a house. The owner of the house is a rich woman who inherited a lot of wealth. Initially, the servant was asked to make his master fall in love with this swindler. Unfortunately, the story changes and they end up having feelings for each other. The employer and the waiter were also involved in a lot of hot scenes. It's certain that the other plot twists are getting more unpredictable until you watch the film yourself. In the second place there is A Portrait of a Beauty. In this film you might get a little carried away when you watch it. It also brings a lot of hot scenes in some parts of the film. Portrait of Beauty tells the story of a woman who disguises herself as a man in order to enter an art school. The woman also met a man who finally realized his disguise. They fall in love and try to establish a relationship. Behind all his disguised plans, this woman also has her own ambitions. In third place there is A Frozen Flower. This film takes the background of a colossal era in royal life. A king has just recruited a young man to be the king's bodyguard. Behind all that, the young man was made a dark partner because he had to live in a room with the king. This was finally known by the whole kingdom and asked the king to abdicate. The empress initially refused, but the king remained in his position to abdicate. Instead, the king's bodyguard was asked to serve the empress to find out how far her game was going. But the conflict gets even more complicated. In fourth place there is Concubine. The love story in this film is quite complicated. A woman must live her life as a concubine in a kingdom. His main duty was clear: to serve the king until he was satisfied. The conflict culminated when this woman fell in love. Unfortunately, not to the king his heart Barto, but to the prince or the king's son. It is certain that this film is filled with very complicated love triangle conflicts. Stay focused on the story even in hot scenes because every second is important in the story. If you are looking for a semi-Korean film that makes you imagine beautiful things, Amuse is the answer. This film even has very few bed scenes. You will only be provided with the imagination of a young woman who lives with a middle-aged writer. This old writer often makes the young woman a part of his writing imagination. However, gradually the woman fell in love with the old man. Really, this film is a must-watch because it has a very good story. At sixth place is the movie Obsessed. The film is set during the war in 1969 and tells the story of an affair between an army officer and the wife of his subordinate. In this film, the officer is told to be married but has no children. As a result, you will be presented with a love triangle story with hot spices in it. Seventh place is The Untold Scandal. This film tells the story of the life of Jo Won, a man who bets with Madame Jo, a woman who has a very cunning nature. Yes, Madame Jo asked Won to flirt with a girl named Lee So. If Jo Won succeeds, then Madame Jo will surrender herself to Jo Won. But behind it all, actually they both have the same feelings for each other. Of course there are many hot scenes that are very interesting to watch. The next one is the film Scarlet Innocent. This semi-Korean thriller film tells the story of a professor who has to endure punishment and goes to a village. In the village he meets the village girl, Young Woo Sung, who ends up having a romantic relationship between the two. In addition to many criminal scenes, This film also presents many hot scenes from the professor and the village girl. So, that was the recommendation for a semi-Korean film from Mimin. So which film are you going to watch first? Don't forget to subscribe and comment. Bae bae bae.